Ciao, hi folks, and welcome to my preview looking ahead to this weekend's Italian Grand Prix which I'm very much looking forward to. A Grand Prix that will see the sprint qualifying format reintroduced after that was used at the British Grand Prix. Format I actually quite liked actually, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that at Monza this weekend. And going into the Grand Prix, plenty of news stories, particularly driver changes that's taken place. So obviously we knew earlier in the week about Valtteri Bottas joining Alfa Romeo for 2022 and also on a multi-year deal. And that has led to George Russell being announced as a Mercedes driver. So it's going to be an all British driver lineup at Mercedes for 2022. And I'm really intrigued to see how George gets on at Mercedes. If last year's Sakir Grand Prix is anything to go by, then I think Lewis will definitely have a fight on his hands, that's for sure. And I think what's refreshing when when you look at the future of Formula One, I think it's really bright. You look at George now going to be at Mercedes, Max at Red Bull, and let's not forget Max is still only 23, so he's got plenty of years ahead of him. Charles Leclerc at Ferrari, Lando Norris, and then you've got many other drivers as well. So the future is bright for Formula One, and you know what, George has really earned the opportunity. I think he's done a fantastic job. Williams, even when he was, even when he was at Williams in his first season, I thought there were signs that actually was doing a pretty, good job with what was a not the greatest of cars that year in 2019, but even so, I thought George did a great job. And even last year, whilst they didn't, I don't think Williams scored any points last year. But even so, there were signs that Williams and George were making improvements, and this year they've really made significant improvements. And Williams, you have to say, look good. It's eighth in the constructors, and a large part of that is down to George, and of course, not forgetting Nicholas Latifi, which who we'll come on to talk about. But yeah, George, he definitely deserves the opportunity at Mercedes, and yeah, I think you look at what George has been able to achieve. I think particularly this year. You look at what he's been able to do, particularly in qualifying, Mr. Saturday, and he's really driven the wheels off that Williams. And yeah, like I say, he really earned the opportunity. And yeah, I wish George all the very best at Mercedes for 2022. What the situation kind of reminds me of, I'm not saying it's going to play out like this, but it reminds me of McLaren in 2007 when it was Fernando Alonso who was supposedly the lead driver and Lewis was supposed to play number two, but that certainly didn't happen at all. So whether Lewis will experience that at Mercedes, we will wait and see. But we know that Lewis won't have, doesn't really have many years in Formula One. Well, in my opinion, but but I think George, as I say, is the future, and I'm sure Mercedes, when they made that decision in terms of who to go with for 2022, they would have had their eye on the future as well. So and obviously we've got new regulations coming in, so Mercedes will want to see put George in that car, and if not now, then when, So like I said, I think George has definitely earned the opportunity, and he deserves his opportunity at Mercedes. So I wish George all the very best at Mercedes. Obviously, he'll still have a job to do for Williams between now and the end of the season, and to consolidate at least that eighth place in the constructors, and to be able to um, prove why, continue to prove why Mercedes have made the decision in taking him on for 2022. And speaking of Williams, so we learned today, well, I should say on the 8th of September, as I'm filming this, we learned that Williams will be retaining Nicholas Latifi. And you know what, Nicholas, like George, has come on really strong at Williams. I think this year in particular, I think, whilst in the early part of the season, whilst the results might not have shown the improvements that he was making, you look at his performance in Hungary, you look at his qualifying performance in Belgium, and you have to say Nicholas did a fantastic job. And he's definitely made improvements this year. and we've seen a lot more of him. Okay, George has continued to out qualify Nicholas, but I think Nicholas has held his own. I think he's, as I say, he's done a great job at Williams, and he'll be looking to continue to build on what he's achieved so far this year and take that into 2022, where he'll be joined by Alexander Albon, who is now going to be a Williams driver for 2022. Still have his links with Red Bull, but no, you know what? I'm really happy for Alex. And look, he had a difficult time at Red Bull, and he didn't pan out as he would have liked. He actually had a really good start to his F1 career. He did a great job at Toro Rosso when he was there. And as I say, difficult time at Red Bull. But I think with going to Williams, which no, and I don't mean to offend Williams in a bad way, but knowing that he will be driving for Williams, there won't be as much pressure as say, driving for Williams compared to driving for Red Bull. So perhaps that might play in Alexander Albon's favour. And we've seen what Alex is capable of in the past, and he's a good driver. He's got good racecraft as well. He definitely will get his elbows out. So yeah, Alex will. I'm sure he'll grasp the opportunity at Williams, and I really hope he does because as I mentioned with Lando, George, Max, those and Charles, those are just some of the drivers, that are part of the future of Formula One, and Alex will want to be part of that. So, if he has a good season with Williams next year, then who knows what might happen in the future. But like I say, really happy to see Alexander Albon back in Formula One for 2022, and I think Williams have got a really exciting lineup, a young lineup, but an exciting one. Yeah, going into 2022. So that more or less, you could argue, leaves who will take on who will be alongside Valtteri Bottas at Alfa Romeo, and the two seats at Haas as well. Um, so there has been talk at Alpha about I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Poucher, the French, I believe he's French. I could be wrong. But that him, Theo Poucher, about him being linked with a seat, strongly linked with a seat at Alfa Romeo. So where did then that leave Antonio Giovinazzi? He'll be difficult. He's in a difficult place, but going into a home race at Monza, perhaps that's the Grand Prix he needs to want to put in a strong performance in front of his home crowd, and also to prove to the team that he actually deserves his place at Alfa Romeo and stay for at least another season with the team. But will Alfa want to go in a different direction, or will they want to go with someone like Theo? Will they want to retain Antonio? This might be a bit of a long shot, but would they want to give Robert Kubica an opportunity at Alfa Romeo? Having a Kubica Bottas lineup, you've got experience there, and two very talented drivers. And whilst Kubica did struggle at Williams, perhaps with new regulations, maybe he could be one of those drivers that benefits from the new regulations in 2022. So yeah, interesting decision lies ahead for Frederick Vasseur and also Alfa Romeo in terms of who will be alongside um, Valtteri Bottas next year. But then also I mentioned about Haas as well. So so Mick Schumacher, he's actually another driver who's been linked with making a move to Alfa Romeo. But I'd love to see Mick Schumacher stay in Formula One. Hopefully, either go into Alfa Romeo or remaining with Haas, and then of course Nikita Mazepin. So difficult to see Nikita leaving Haas, and you would think that he um, would be one of Haas's drivers for 2022. It's difficult to really assess Haas in terms of their driver situation at the moment, because when you look at their season as a whole this year, when they haven't really developed the car, it was always going to be a difficult season for Haas, but I think in the circumstance, I think both drivers have done their best. Okay, Nikita Mazepin, shall we say, has caused one or two drivers some headaches at times, and it's not been in the good book, shall we say, at all times. But I think I think he's done tried to do the best job that he could, and exactly the same with Mick Schumacher as well. So yeah, I think it'd be potentially wise for Haas to perhaps retain their driver lineup for 2022 and see how see how they perform this next year. Like I say, this year is very difficult to judge them because they haven't exactly made any developments on this year's car when really they're switching all their attention to next year's car. So we'll see um, what Haas decide to do with their driver lineup. But I think for stability as well, I think perhaps continuing with Mick Schumacher and also Nikita Mazepin might be the wise thing to do for Haas. So yeah, plenty of driver change that have happened, or driver announcements that have happened this week. But just a very quick look at this weekend's Italian Grand Prix. You would think that when you look at the track characteristics, you would think that it would be a Mercedes track, and it should be. So I expect to see Mercedes right up there, and and yeah, really, going for that race win. But Red Bull, you can never count them out, particularly especially Max. So whilst it may not be one of Red Bull's stronger tracks, they've proven this season that that whilst there've been some tracks where they may not have been strong. No, they weren't supposed to struggle, and yet they were able to deliver strong results. So don't count Red Bull out this weekend for the race win and Max for the race victory as well. And this championship battle, both the constructors and also the drivers' championship, I think is definitely going down to the wire, and I think that's what we as neutrals, that's what we want. But yeah, and of course, with it being the Italian Grand Prix, big weekend for Ferrari. And yeah, Ferrari will definitely want to put on a show for their fans this weekend. And you know what? You don't be surprised if at least either Carlos or Charles puts the car, one of them ends up on the podium this weekend. I think Ferrari definitely have the upper edge at the moment in the battle for third in the constructors, but I expect McLaren to bounce back. Not the best of weekends for them at the Dutch Grand Prix for McLaren, that is, but expect them to bounce back. And you look at the characteristics of Monza, you should think that the McLaren will be better suited to the Monza track. So yeah, and again, that intriguing battle between McLaren and Ferrari in the constructors for third is going to continue, and that will probably go down um, to the closing stages of the season as well. So that's something to really look forward to and watch out for this weekend. So yeah, so if you want to talk things Formula One, I'm on Twitter at Baggies20, and I'm also on Instagram, Manish Patel89. I'm going to make a prediction in terms of this weekend for the Italian Grand Prix. So I'm going to go for a Lewis Hamilton win. I think Mercedes will come back strong this weekend. I'm going to go for Max Verstappen to finish second, and for third, I'm going to go because I did say Ferrari about potentially having them having a chance finishing on the podium. So I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc to finish third. So top three, I'm going to predict of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Charles Leclerc. So enjoy the Italian Grand Prix, all of you, and yeah, I will catch up with all you guys and girls soon. Take care, everyone.